Social situatedness. We all have millions of things about us that are different from some people and similar to others. Our society has socially constructed some of these differences to be important and has ignored most of them. Few of us would have difficulty listing these socially significant differences: race, wealth, sex, sexuality, age, religion, ethnicity, nationality, gender identity, disability, veteran status, and plenty more. It is worth remembering that there are many other things about us that could be seen as important differences, but which are not socially constructed to be so. Another way to talk about these categories is they make up people's identity, and indeed many people identify in important ways with the social categories to which they belong. These social categories are also known as classes, so we might refer to women as a sex class, meaning women in the context of how they are socially categorized by sex. Somewhat confusingly, classes based on economic differences in wealth and markers of wealth are sometimes referred to as just class. The social construction, the importance of each of these differences exceeds any reality, whatever that means, of the differences. So while someone who is socially categorized as black may have a darker skin pigmentation than someone who is socially categorized as white, the difference between white and black has been socially constructed to be far more significant than that. Specifically, all of these socially constructed differences manifest in differences of power. For each category, there are people who have been socially constructed to deserve more and have more power, and people who have been socially constructed to deserve and have less power. Those categories where there is more power are privileged, while those categories where there is less power are oppressed. In most cases, the privileged categories are immediately familiar to us: white, rich, male, straight, Christian, cis, able-bodied people from the US or Western Europe. To say that these groups are privileged does not mean that every single person who is a member of this group is better off in every single situation compared to every person who is not. Rather, it is to say that there are large social forces that tip the scales in their favor, that make struggles easier to overcome for the privileged, that make it easier to thrive from good luck. There is a wealth of social science that supports this claim, that demonstrates the ways in which people who are members of oppressed groups in equivalent situations face worse outcomes than privileged people. In women's studies, we describe the collection of categories that a person falls into as their social situatedness, that is to say, how they are located within the power levels of society. And one of the core tenets of women's studies is that how people are socially situated has significant effects on their lives, both in terms of what happens to them and in terms of how they experience those events. We also talk about people's standpoint, which is the idea that how we perceive and experience society depends on our social situatedness.